Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to be doing a special selection today, and that is where one of you guys tells me exactly what you want me to check out, and I check it out. Today's comes at us from Patricio Mendez. Wants Los Jaivas, La Poderosa Muerte. It's a Chilean band I've reacted to before. The song is in Spanish. The specific song is the centerpiece from Las Alturas de Machu Picchu, which translates to the Heights of Machu Picchu album. The lyrics taken from Nobel Prize winning poet Pablo Neruda. It incorporates a prog rock sound with electric guitar, mini moog, and piano, as well as various indigenous woodwinds like the trutruca. The video is shot on location in Machu Picchu, a temple and citadel high up in the Andes. The song makes mention of how brief our lives are in the steps of Machu Picchu, bringing us even closer to death. Ultimately, what's left are the stones of Machu Picchu as a testament of the permanence of the beyond within our impermanent world. So, it sounds like a fairly heavy song. And I remember Los Jaivas. I quite enjoyed their works last time we checked them out. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of happy people in the community to revisit them. It's actually one of the songs that I get the most comments on still, even though it's such an older video. So, yeah, let's check this one out. Very cool. Beautiful layering here. We have a nice sixth feel that gives it a nice pulse to it.
El hombre en que parte de su conversación abierta entre los.
Yeah, I love how that started out with the call and response, and then they line back up to finish the sentence.
Lo indestructible, lo imperecedero, la vida.
Very interesting. The drums are accenting 1 and 5 on the first time through, and then 1 and 4 on the second time through. Yeah, just beautiful soundscapes being created with all of these different timbres. Beautiful singing on top of these very emotive soundscapes underneath. Love that counterpoint between the moog and this vocalist. almost have shifted to straight 1 and 4 for the accents. Really ditched that offset 1 and 5. Yeah, really cool. Really ramping up the tension with higher emphasis on the snare. Yeah, there's a really cool bell sounds that kind of gives me ideas of I don't even know. Yeah, the rising thirds on that guitar line, like walking up the steps. Very cool. Yeah, so we've shifted to 4 and it has sort of a march feel going on now. I love the group vocals as well, tying in with the themes of the song and how we're all in this together. Very interesting melodic choices though. Bringing back that triplet feel. I assume we're going to push back to the 6/8. Yep.
Cuando la mano de color de arcilla se convirtió en arcilla y cuando
Love that
los
bass line
pequeños
right there.
párpados se cerraron, llenos de ásperos muros,
So good.
poblados de castillos, y cuando todo el hombre se enredó en su agujero, quedó la exactitud enarbolada, el alto sitio de la aurora humana, la más alta vasija que contuvo el silencio, una vida de piedra después de tantas vidas.
cool synergy right there. Yeah, they're really digging into this 4 against 6 now. Very interesting timbres they're utilizing as well. Very interesting. That ending intrigues me a bit because it kind of there's finality to it, but there's also implied cyclicalness. The song didn't end, so to say, we didn't have a musical ending. It's just what was being played was slowly drowned out by this otherworldly tone that ended in a very large drumhead sound. Reminded me of a timpani. It's just got this depth to the note, and then that faded out. And of course, the visuals was panning out so far that most of the picture was just black, alluding to some of the themes of death and permanence within impermanence. So I don't know. There's so many really cool things going on in here without me really knowing the lyrics or the poem that they were taken from. Just getting that introductory theme from the comment. There's some really interesting ideas in here. I love their there's an ambiguity to the time signature. Usually, when it comes to stuff like that, I would say, I would write it in this time signature with this feel. But with this song, I almost want to say the ambiguity is intentional. I don't think that there is a true version of this song, whether it's written in 6 with emphasized beats 1 and 4, or whether it's written in 4 with triplets throughout. And I also don't want to say explicitly that there's a switch in the middle either. The song just is in that state of middle grounds. There is a constant feeling of 6, there's a constant feeling of 4, but I don't know, I get the notion that there isn't a concrete answer. And I think if I could ask them, what time signature was the song written in, I get the feeling I would be told that it doesn't have one. It's however you want to make it, or something along those lines, which I don't know. That's interesting because it's not usually where my brain goes. Usually, I have a very definitive answer, a very definitive feel. But there's so many sections that play around with a 4 pulse. There's sections that play around with a 6 pulse, and then at the end they go full on combining the two. And it really could be written either way, but I don't really think it matters. I think the ambiguity is more important. And the ambiguity which leads to the idea of a dual state, the impermanence within the permanence within the impermanence. So that is very cool. I love the way that they approach music, approach the sound of their music. I know it was a different time. Let's see if they were kind enough Nope. I'm really interested when this was released. Judging by the outfits and the some of the instruments, I kind of have more or less an idea. I'm gonna say 60s, 70s. Oh, this looks like it was 81. Yep, 81. Oh, a little later than I expected. Um, but they just have such an experiment. They have such an experimenting view of music. Um, not just because the music itself, I don't think is anything unusual. It's really the sounds they utilize. Um, the Moog, I kind of associate that sound with the era, but at the same time, the way it was utilized, I feel is unique. Some of the different soundscapes that they created using the Moog and some adjacent timbres are just fascinating. But pairing that with these indigenous woodwinds really creates a unique sound that I haven't heard before. It reminds me very much of the Who, HU, not WHO, where they incorporate modern music with traditional instruments. Also, folk metal does a lot of this as well. But these are just instruments that I don't typically hear. They're woodwinds with very unique timbres to them that create. Now, this is going to be completely biased and maybe not necessarily exactly what they were going for, but to me, it creates almost I don't want to say otherworldly because I think that feels, um, it was like distancing uh, too much, but it's definitely a cultural sound I'm not used to. There's some really cool tones that they can get with these woodwinds, and being paired with, at the time, would be modern instruments and modern play styles. It just creates this really unique sound that I have not heard anywhere. It really makes me want to dive into folk music from Chile and hear more of these instruments because I love the way they sound. It's just it's like seeing a doppelganger, but there's just like a minor imperfection, like the Star Trek goatees from the evil dimension. I can hear instruments that sound like flutes or recorders or something, but there's the coloring is just slightly off, and I'm like, that sounds like something I know, but it isn't. There's something slightly different about it, and I need to explore that. It's some really cool tones, and it plays with my expectations on timbre coming from, the white Western world, European music, American music. I have a tone that I think of, a timbre that I think of when I think of flutes or when I think of clarinets or recorders or any other instrument, trumpets and saxophones and trombones. But there's all sorts of indigenous and folk instruments, traditional instruments from all over the world outside of what originated in, mostly Europe that I do not have much experience with and much exposure to. And this was just a nice reminder that there's a lot of timbres out there that I really should be checking out. I talked about this, what was it, Sleigh Bells? Where I really appreciated that it was pop music in pop structure that I was expecting with some really interesting timbres. And I think timbre is something that most people don't really think about too much, but intrinsically understand that it's a unique that unique timbres are more interesting. I mean, when you think about rock and metal, and you hear a guitar tone and you know exactly who's playing it, right? There is even in rock and metal, timbre is an extremely important part of songwriting. It's honestly one of the first things you're going to think about is what tones do you want to accompany the music in your head or the music that you want to write. And I really appreciate unique timbres. And there's a lot of experimentation going on in modern instruments to achieve new timbres. We do a lot of this digitally with effect pedals, or we do it within the DAW if we're working with MIDI. But like I said, this is just a really nice reminder that there's a lot of timbres that already exist naturally that I should also be exploring. So I greatly appreciate that. Just that gentle nudge. Bryan, check out the rest of the world. Um, but yeah, so they're utilizing this in combination with at the time modern instruments and modern timbres, and really creating a unique soundscape, both with the music they're writing and then the timbres they're using to tell these musical stories. And I love how it's this pairing of old and new, traditional indigenous instruments with modern electronic ones, and pairing that with this idea of Machu Picchu and its great permanence on this earth while we are impermanent. There's this constant clear divide that ties everything together. I mentioned that the time signature, there's a divide between the 6 and 4. You can easily hear both of them, but I don't think either one of them is the dominant. They both exist together. These instrument tones are existing together. We have the traditional folk and we have the modern electronic instruments. They exist together. We have, dang, where was I going with that? Oh, this idea of permanence and impermanence. Human life being short while Machu Picchu being constant, not ever really going anywhere. It will continue to be there. And I just love how all of these themes are brought together throughout so many different elements of the song. I don't remember hearing so many folk instruments the last time we checked out Los Jaivas, but maybe I'm just misremembering that. It was some time ago, and I probably should have refreshed before jumping into this, but I thought I had a pretty good idea about them, and maybe now I'm realizing I don't. But I greatly appreciate that they know what they want to do and they have such a strong understanding of the art they're making. Um, this is a song about the meeting grounds of two very different opposite ideas, and they incorporated that so often into the works, while also looking at what did he say? What was some of this stuff in here? Oh, that's a weird effect. That's because it was the wrong panel. Um, let's see. The poem was about makes mention of how brief our lives are in the steps of Machu Picchu, bringing us ever closer to death, and what's left are the stones and testaments of permanence of the beyond within our impermanent world. So, yeah, Uh, that's what it was. You remember I said that there are these bells being hit, and I'm not talking about like glockenspiels or like chimes, but I'm talking about the really long vertical bells, and you hit them with a mallet, and you get this really nice, deep, resonating, almost gong-like sound. Um, and I swear there was one of them being hit in here, and that's what it is, like a death toll, like a death bell. Um, and yeah, it's really cool how that sneaks in there. Like the death aspect seems to be maybe a smaller part of the poem, at least the little knowledge I have given from that context. But it's still an aspect of this permanence versus impermanence, and it finds its way into the music as well. And I think that's really cool. Oh, the other thing is how the impermanence of our world, and of course the permanence of what comes after, regardless of whether you believe there is an afterlife or if it's just returning to the stars, into the nothingness. We're all going. We all live this life. We're all going to die, and we're all going to proceed to that next whatever. It is there's solidarity in that, and I really enjoy how several sections of the song incorporate group vocals, not necessarily harmonized. It's a bunch of people singing pretty close to the same notes. Maybe some people are a little sharp, maybe some people are a little off, but you get that sort of group singing vibe, like a bar song or people singing "Happy Birthday." Nobody's really aiming for a pitch. You just kind of get this wall of vocals with sort of an implied center pitch that most people tend to sing around. And it really brings together that concept of connectedness and solidarity of being in the same situation. We're all going to go through this same process, and we're all going to feel small on the stairs of Machu Picchu together. And I just think it's so there's so much intentionality in their music, and it really makes me want to go back to their the last song that we checked out from them. Oh wait, you know what? Something I'm kind of remembering that track had a made up language in it, didn't it? Or am I thinking of a different band? Anyways, I want to go back to that one, and if the lyrics were not made up, I want to check that one out against the lyrics too, because I'm just seeing so much intentionality in merging lyrical themes with musical ones, and making very deliberate choices in the music to accompany and support the themes in the lyrics. It is fascinating, fascinating how intentional all of this is, and really utilized to support these core themes. Um, going back to that idea though, the very beginning, one of the first vocal sections is a bit of call and response. We have the main vocalist and then a group of vocalists, not harmonized. Again, just kind of that wall of sound, a bunch of people singing something similar in range. And the first one says something, and then the group repeats it back, and then they come together to finish the statement off. And I just thought that was really interesting. It's this really nice play on call and response, especially in repeated call and response, where they're both going to end at the same point in the middle of a statement, and they can come together to finish it as one, as a whole. And I think that's really cool. Even if this might be of a stretch, but this concept of being in two different places, maybe in time, but in the end, we're all we're together. We're all going to experience the next phase together. So I think that's really interesting as well. Let's see if I can point out anything specific in the music. Counterpoint, counterpoint. There was something going. Oh man, I think I just lost it. There was some really good counterpoint in here, and I, I wish I could remember some specific examples. But there are a few sections in here where there is a ton of layers, and usually two or three melody lines going on. And unfortunately, I can't point out a specific one, but vocals and the Moog had a really nice part somewhere in the middle where they were both doing separate moving melody lines, and it was gorgeous, especially against the soundscape that they were creating with this combination of the guitars and the uh, the folk instruments, the traditional instruments. Just really beautiful stuff, and beautiful is really the word for all of this, especially when it comes to the bass. And I'm pretty sure I called out the bass last time as well. Their bass lines are great. They're not too flashy, but they kind of walk the line between melody and like a jazz walking bass line, where they'll kind of walk across some chords in similar manners, but then throw in a nice little lick to help progress the story along, to help the song move in direction rather than just providing a sort of chordal mapping to the song. And it's just this really nice bouncing back and forth of rolls of holding down the chord progression and then playing some really nice licks. Love it, and it's mixed so well. It's very rarely buried. Now there are some sections that are pretty dense, and it was 81. I don't know when in 81, so this could have been recorded in 1980. Production was kind of a bit rougher. I've mentioned before I'm a fan of very clean production, clean mixes, but this was definitely a time. I think 80s we would still been recording on tape too. So, the mix is going to be what it is, especially for its time. But I still appreciate that in the less dense areas, the bass is definitely given a lot of space and volume to shine through, which I think is important, especially given that it is sort of providing more of a rhythmic and chordal bass line for the rest of the song, very much like the bass does in a lot of jazz standards. So yeah, as usual, I've talked quite a bit about this song. Los Jaivas is one of those bands that I greatly enjoy, and I don't know why I haven't checked out more of them. They do some really fascinating stuff, and once again, I'm blown away by this song. I unfortunately didn't really connect to it too strongly on a casual area, but I mean, just on an artistic level, it is a work of art, and that's honestly all I could ever ask for. If I enjoy it also, that's excellent. But even if you just create something that I can appreciate, that's honestly more than enough for me. That's the height of music right there, I think, is just being artistically relevant and important and having something to say. And this song has plenty to say in every aspect of it. However, those are just my thoughts on Canción del Ser. Nope, that's tomorrow. On La Poderosa Muerte by Los Jaivas. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Anything that maybe I got right, maybe I got wrong, maybe you have some context to some of this stuff that they did. Any extra information or comments is greatly appreciated. When you're done with that, you can head up to the description box. There's a link in there for Linktree, which is a fantastic little menu with everything related to critical reactions. Whether you want to follow me on Twitter, support me through Patreon, join the Discord community, or submit your own special selection. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It's greatly appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to finish up this week. We're going to look at the final post-punk song, and then we're going to do another special selection. And as I just kind of ruined the surprise, it's going to be another Los Jaivas song. We're doing two back-to-back. And you're going to have to rewind it if you want to know the title. I'm not going to say it again. I already spoiled it once. Shame on me. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.